Hello, everyone, and welcome to my show. You're here with me, Juliette Bryant, and today I have a very special guest, Giles Bryant, and we're talking all things sound. We're talking voice empowerment, we're talking sound healing, the power of sound to transform our lives. So, welcome, Giles.
Thank you, Juliette.
So, tell me a little bit about your background leading you into sound. So, some of the things that you do right now that have led you to where you are.
Thank you. I was trained to be a barrister, so you have to use your voice when you're in court, of course. And I was very good at it. I was very good at it. But at law school, I discovered a lot of the corruption within the legal profession, and I didn't want to follow that on as a job. So I ended up living in the woods, which was a departure from the bar, of course. And in the woods, we used to sit around the fire and we would sing. And there was a place of non-judgment. So everyone was able to really express themselves into the flames with the guitar and with the drum. And I really learnt then about the power of sound to set us free.
Nice, beautiful. And right now, in your life, you're a writer, music writer, a singer, music producer, running a voice empowerment coach, a yoga teacher. So you have a lot of connection to sound on a regular basis, sharing your music, your passion with the world, don't you?
Yes, I do. And I'd like to thank some of my great mentors, Craig Perez, the incredible music producer who did the Sacred Chants series, Sacred Chants of Shiva, Sacred Chants of Divine Mother, etc. And Craig really inspired me um, to the understanding that sound is divine and sacred sound takes us back to God. The world is sound. In the beginning was the Word was with God, and the Word was God. And in the Gita, Krishna says, I am the Om. So God declares that the vibration of sound is divine. So through chanting, through toning, through attunement with that sacred sound, we return our consciousness once again back to the infinite. What greater thing could there be than that, really?
And a lot of science has shown this now. There's a lot of research gone into the fact that when we sing just normal songs, it doesn't even have to be sacred songs, for 15 minutes, it can rewire our brain. It can change us from a state of depression into a state of happiness. And I know personally that I've experienced this a lot, the upliftment that sound can bring. But then when you take it even deeper and you put that intention into that sound, wow, what a powerful force it can be.
Absolutely, it's incredible. I mean, if you think of the origins of sound healing, the first incident of sound healing occurred, actually. I don't know if you know this, Juliet, and listeners out there, but the first incident of sound healing occurred when the caveman stubbed his toe. He was in the cave and he said, "Oh, ah!" And if you stub your toe and you say, "Oh, what a wonderful healing experience," but if you let out sound, it can really help. I mean, for example, during the birth of our children, particularly Eliar, and we were toning, and we were in Cambridge at the time, and I don't know if you could have heard us. It was about 12 and a third years ago. You might have actually heard us, the sounds we were making, and the intention plus the sound brings the healing. If people only knew this, if people only practiced this, we could really raise the consciousness of ourselves and of the planet and bring profound healing. Intention plus sound brings the healing. So if I hold an intention, and if I make those sounds thinking about love and peace and thinking about God's love and peace, then it really helps to bring that into manifestation. And I think that's one of the problems we have today, because the music industry, and mainstream music, there's so much darkness in the frequencies and in the lyrics. Though there's wonderful music out there as well. I mean, some of it's absolutely brilliant. Some new music is incredible, but some of it's very twisted.
Yeah.
And we need to get back to the 432 as well. I know you can see my t-shirt there. We need to get back to the 432 tuning.
So tell us a little bit more about this, because most music nowadays is done in 440, isn't it?
So the orchestra tunes to A, and it tunes. They had to standardize tuning, so they settled on 440. 432, in my opinion, would be better because it's the square root, the speed of light, it's the distance of the radius of the sun, 432,000 miles. In a day, there are 43,200 seconds,
Wow.
and in a night, it kind of makes sense. The harmonic of the size of the Earth. Some people say it relates to our DNA, the size of the moon, etc. So it kind of makes sense that we would tune to 432, and it said that Verdi did, Mozart did. In the ancient, we have records of, for example, in China, they found all of these singing bowls from a temple thousands of years old, and they were all tuned to 432. So if you've got a stringed instrument, just try it, and you can buy a lot more instruments now that are naturally in that frequency. It takes us more into our heart, into the healing energy. Like here. Isn't that beautiful? I mean, I think it is. I know the microphone's picking it up well, but for me, that's just but it wants to go here.
So why did they change music from being 432, or being in this more healing vibration, to 440? Why did they do that?
Well, they had to standardize it to something,
Okay.
and they chose 440. It's been said this is the gin and tonic with a twist.
Because it's quite discordant, isn't it, to
Well,
our system?
Well, it's all about the intention behind it. So you could tune to anything,
Yeah.
and it could bring you to God. On some levels, the consciousness overrides anything. But I mean, I'd just recommend people try it. That's really the thing. Just to try it and see, is it helpful? Does it make you feel better, or does it not? And just base it on your own experience. It's really the intention behind it, the intention behind the sound. And there's a great guy on YouTube called Rick Beato, music producer. He's a massive YouTube channel, and he'll often review the top 10 of Spotify. The top 10 songs on Spotify. It's just, oh, he's just beside himself, thinking, "There's all this amazing music. There's all this amazing music. What's the music that's being pushed?" So, but we can just take control back ourselves, and even if you have something like this here, Juliette, and I thoroughly recommend that people at home get something, a singing bowl, a drum, a chime, anything, just so you can hold your intention. And that's really the key, the intention that we put behind the sound or the frequency, which then resonates out. It doesn't just resonate into our body cells and into the brain, it actually resonates beyond that, and we can connect into what the old folk in Australia referred to as the song lines, or we would call the ley lines, or the Chinese call the dragon lines.
And it's been quite exciting. We've gone on many adventures where we've walked or driven and gone to lots of sacred sites on these different lays, and sang on these sacred sites, and put that vibration into the earth of healing. And we've had many powerful experiences. What would you say has been your most profound, powerful experience singing wise?
So at Avebury, Avebury was built about 5,000 years ago. It's the biggest stone circle in the world, and it's aligned to the May Day sunrise. The St Michael line is aligned to the May Day sunrise, and it's said that thousands of years ago people would gather and they would walk down the ley line. So from where we are recording this here, Stradishall, Bury St Edmunds, people would walk down the ley line. They come up from Cornwall, from Somerset. They meet in Avebury, our national temple, and I sung to the Stones one May Eve. It's something to do. If you listeners out there, go to Avebury on May Eve and May Day. Just experience that. God, powerful. So I stayed up all night. I just slept by the stones, but I sang to each of the stones. And the thing about a stone, it's almost like a computer. It's those stones in Avebury are composed of granite, which is 90% quartz. And like quartz in this computer or in your mobile phone, in the silicon quartz, it holds the memory. And in a tiny little chip in a phone, it will hold enormous amount. So think the information that's held in these big stones, these 50-ton stones. In a sense, Avebury is a computer,
Mm.
and there's an interaction. So how do you, you've got to type in the password, right? You've got to get into the computer system, yeah?
Yep.
So what's the password to get into the computer system of these ancient stone circles? Um, so I chanted to every stone. I sung the Mahamantra, I sung the Hare Krishna mantra to every stone. I went in a clockwise direction. I sung it to every single stone. And when I completed it, it was like a blue light. It was in my visible sight. It
Mm.
was this blue light shone down from the heavens. It was like if the Avebury Circle was a grid, and this blue light shone down from the heavenly realm. They talk about Krishna being blue. The
Mm.
Christ energy
Yep.
is blue, and this blue energy filled the stones. And I mean, wherever it went from there is wherever it goes. Along these dragon lines, the rainbow serpent around the earth. But this was what people used to
Yeah.
do in the old days. The Perpetual Choirs, sites such as Avebury, Glastonbury, Bury St Edmunds, near where we are, some of these ancient sites where people would sing, but not just as I did on my own. They would be with
Mm.
others and take it in turns. What about you, Juliette? What's your most um, profound experience with sound or your voice?
I think when it wasn't that long ago, we were in Royston, and we went to the Roystone, and someone called Rory Duff had said that the nodal point had moved from the cave to the stone so that more people could gather around it, and there were four of us there, and when we were there, we were singing, and it was quite a profound thing because as we were singing, the whole landscape changed, and I could see the stone in a forest glade, in its more original setting. And I opened my eyes and I could see both at the same time, both it being by a road and it being in this more harmonic dwelling that it probably was originally. And I felt very transported, and I felt a deep level of healing that was happening around that stone at that time. So that's probably one of the most profound times for me.
Yeah, we should go back there, and I just encourage everyone at home to go to your local sacred sites, local sacred places. Churches are often wonderful, have wonderful acoustics in the by the altar and the choir of churches,
Mm.
and just respectfully to tone, to sound, and if you can with others. And the awakening of the movement of choirs over the last 15 years has been extraordinary. You talking earlier about the health benefits of singing. It
Mm.
can connect us to God ultimately, because the world is sound and sound is divine. But on a level of physical health, of boosting our immune system, of mental health and well-being, singing on your own or particularly with others, this congregational chanting, which was called kirtan by the Indians, but seems to be a practice all over the world for community bonding, for healing, for healing of the land as well, for blessing of the crops and of the
Mm.
animals, and of a transformative experience for our consciousness, for upliftment of consciousness. It's global. It's everywhere I've
Yeah.
been around the world. You have these practices
Yeah.
of song and of singing, and one of the first things in the nut job, one of the first things that happened was they stopped people singing.
Mm.
They said you can't sing, you can't. And I mean, what a nut job that was. It's one of the best things for people's immune systems to be able to sing. Excuse
And that
me.
upliftment that it brings, that singing brings such joy, it can bring such joy to people, and that coming together
Oh, excuse
can
me.
be a very powerful thing.
Oh, so powerful. Absolutely so powerful. I remember we were singing in the COVID times. We were singing Christmas carols outside the co-op in Clare, and people looked at us like we were evil, like we were some kind of deviants, so terrible people for rejoicing in God's name at Christmas in a Christian country. You almost couldn't make it up. But I mean, it didn't stop us singing. We sung every week throughout the lockdown, the supposed lockdown. Our friends would come, we'd gather, and we'd sing every single week. So I mean, it didn't stop a lot of people.
And so a lot of people said that that was an anchor point for them to help them through. If you were isolated and you were able to then reach out and be with someone to sing, that can make a big difference. But Giles, I want to talk a little bit about your voice empowerment work that you've been doing, because you create beautiful music. If anyone hasn't heard the Perpetual Choirs albums, do check them out. Absolutely amazing. You've worked on the Piece on Your Plate. You've written a lot of those songs, produced that, edited it, mastered it, everything pretty much on that. So you've worked with the Stephen Ash Medicine Man, a brilliant album that you worked with him on. So you've created a lot of music, but you've moved on to help support other people now to really find their voice. What moved you into doing this?
Well, one reason is financial, because when I made albums 20 years ago or 15 years ago, you could do a gig and you'd sell CDs afterwards. And now, even though I've made incredible music, I mean, you say about the Perpetual Choirs, a One World album took me 8 years, at an incredible cost, 6 years traveling the world recording some of the greatest musicians in the world. But people don't buy the CDs. I can do a gig and there's 100 people in Mass Enlightenment and you'll sell 2 CDs. I mean, it's a great challenge, because there's a saying by Klaus Schwab: "You will own nothing and be happy." And things such as Spotify are the perfect example of this, where if you have a Spotify account, you own nothing, but you're so happy because for a tenner, we've got Spotify for a tenner, whatever it is, a month. You got all this music, rather than just buying a CD for a tenner.
People don't get scratched.
They get scratched. People don't have CD players in their cars, or some people don't have them in their homes anymore. They took them out of computer drives. So that's a big problem for the musician. And even very, very big acts now, they make money on touring, and you'll see some of the prices to go and see concerts are extraordinary now. Whereas they're not making any money out of the music, actually producing music. But I still want to put so much into producing music and producing this incredible music for the now and for pathways for the future. But regarding the voice empowerment, when I was at a festival, if I sold a CD, great, or whatever it was. But afterwards, people were always in this buzz, but I couldn't really help them. I don't teach yoga via Zoom. I just don't really agree with the principle of teaching in that way. But the voice empowerment sessions, one-to-one, was something that I can do via Zoom. So I can work with anyone in the world via the internet or in person. And it's one of the most important things, because our voice, what are we without our voice?
Yeah.
I'd just like to ask that with you. What are you without your voice? I mean, some people, obviously, they can't speak, and God bless them. But our voice is so important in our manifestation. One of the most important things to learn is to say no. We should all practice that. No. It's like a little child, 3-year-old child. If they don't want to do something, it's hard to make them do it, even though they're 3. So we need to be strong and stand up and really empower ourselves. So I think that for me, a lot of people have been shut down with their voices, and particularly about singing. A lot of people carry wounds, conscious or otherwise. And it's so important that we open up our voice again for the work that we do, for our relationships, and also for our healing and our spiritual connection. So the voice empowerment sessions are something that I offer. You can check out my website, gilesbryant.com, all the details about what I do there. Special offer in February as well, £50 for a session, normally 70. So there we go.
So with the voice empowerment, I know that as a child growing up, I had issues around, I loved singing. I used to write lots of musicals and perform them and direct them with my friends. And I remember one time having headphones on and my dad said, "You're singing flat."
And here he is. He's
my
here.
Lovely dad, who was very encouraging.
You see him? Pop. He's in the shot.
Who was very encouraging for me in my life and very supportive. And he wasn't meaning it in a negative way, but that voice stayed throughout, a lot of my life. It's still there sometimes. I have to work hard to move through it. But I have worked through that a lot. But a lot of people, do have these issues, don't they, where someone has said don't sing, or a teacher has said you're rubbish, or whatever it
Well,
is.
I tell you a very powerful example of that, Juliette. I won't name him, but I'm with a friend for his 40th birthday. We're in Spain, land that he owned, and we were singing, singing chants and things on the Moshiva, and he started to cry. I said, "You're right," and he said, "I haven't sung for 32 years." I said, "What?" He said, "I haven't sung since I was 8 because there was a mean teacher at school, and when we were rehearsing for the choir, she pointed at me. She didn't like him. Obviously, he had some issues, and she said, when it's the choir, you mime." And it shut him down. It shut him down for 32 years of his life.
Oh, terrible.
It just, I mean, awful. And it's just how powerful our words are. People say sticks and stones and all that, but that's not true. Words will never hurt. Well, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. That's not true.
No.
Words can be extremely powerful. We talk in the Bible. They talk about the walls of Jericho and all of this, and it seems in the ancient times they had sound, sonic weapons. Sound is so powerful, and we have to be mindful of our speech. Do you know that Patanjali says in the Yoga Sutras that if you're perfect in ahimsa, which is in non-violence, non-injury, in your speech and in your actions and in your thoughts for 9 years, then even the mighty beasts of the jungle will bow down to you. And I met a sannyasi in Rishikesh who lived in where the jungle comes towards the Ganga, and he just lived there in this little hut, like it just slept under it. It was open to the elements. Temple priest, and this tiger came down from the jungle.
Yeah.
And it just snicked him and then just like licked him. Now you or I, it would have eaten because of our bad thoughts, and those bad thoughts go out, right? I mean, I remember I was in the kitchen once and I thought something bad about someone and boom, bang my head, instant karma.
At least you cleared it.
Instant karma, as John Lennon said. So yeah,
around.
be mindful of your thoughts, but also find ways to overcome those injuries, to overcome those scars, to overcome those blockages that we have, to bring them into our consciousness, and with tools and techniques heal them. And that's something that I've become quite adept at because I've gone through my own journey of restriction and of limitation, and I've freed my voice that I can now. I did a 24-hour perpetual choir and I got to 13 hours and then I fell asleep. I thought, how long can one person sing for? But then I woke up and I sung for another 9 hours, and I can do outside concerts with hundreds of people, and my voice is
you got a big old voice.
My voice is incredibly strong and robust, which is one of the reasons that I'm doing so well with these voice empowerment workshops, in demand to do it. Always packed audiences now for the workshops and the one-to-ones, because the proof of the pudding's in the eating.
But I think it's come of time now that people are waking up to. I think there's a collective waking up to the need to free our voices and the need to be able to speak our truth or sing our truth or just have that freedom. And I think so many people, not only in this life, I feel, but in past lives, have been shut down. I see with my women's circles a lot of women who hold this witch wound of maybe speaking about herbs or healing in past lives, and being shut down or killed for it, and having that fear of speaking about anything now. And so I think this is all coming up collectively to be healed so that we can step into our power. So I think that your work is very important, that you're doing at the moment, so that people can really empower themselves. I know for me, being with you over the years, I am stepping more and more into my power with my voice, and you've helped me to do that so much.
Yeah, and it's also, I think, it's like you were saying about pitching, and singing in tune. In the yoga school, you have the two systems, if you like, and you have the bhakti yoga, which is the yoga of love and devotion. So it just says just sing for the Lord, and it just doesn't matter. And then jnana yoga, which is very precise about the mantra has to be perfectly pronounced for it to work effectively. So these two schools kind of coexist, and in Western music, of course, we have this um, this precision of classical music, and now in modern music, because of auto tune, for the last 25 years, the pop music, it's all auto tuned.
25 years they've been doing
They,
that.
they have they've had
Wow.
basic auto tune, and now they have real time auto tune. So you can have a singer who can sing, and they're singing, and then they're in real time. Their pitch is being corrected in real time.
Is that being corrected by a person or by AI?
No.
It's
not. It's not
automatically
AI.
just
It's not. It's
correcting
not.
it.
Yeah, it's not. It's just in real time. It knows the no. It's not. It doesn't even have to be that sophisticated.
Okay.
So I saw Ed Sheeran. Right, he won a court case. Someone had said he'd plagiarized a song, and he hadn't. But anyway, he was outside. He was outside the court in America, and he'd won, and it was incredible because he just had a guitar, and he climbed on a car, and he just sung for everyone. He sung for everyone, and it was just acoustic. There's no trickery here. There's no effects, and it was absolutely amazing because the guy had put his time in. He'd been busking. He's a Suffolk boy, and he'd been busking and he'd practiced. And I think that's one of the most important things, really, if you want to work on your pitch. And it's more difficult when you've got the headphones on. That was what happened with your dad with Pop Pop, because you couldn't hear your voice.
No.
Because you were locked into these headphones. And it's to get an instrument, it's to get a shruti box, or it's to get a singing bowl, or it's to get a piano, it's to get a guitar. You see, what happens is when I pluck the strings, they're vibrating, and that vibration through the sound fills me. And it really helps us to be able to pitch more accurately. And learning these things, learning this the precision of the practice, I also do really encourage people to do so. If you want to get into chanting, Gaia Sanskrit, check out her work and her classes that she does. She's got online classes.
And you were recently featured twice in her amazing series that she did. Incredible series about Sanskrit. And Giles was interviewed. She came here and interviewed Giles about his work with the Perpetual Choirs. And, I think that Giles's information that he gave to Gaia really helped inform her on a lot of the levels. Giles has been studying the Perpetual Choirs for a long time, and it's part of your mission, isn't it, to reinvigorate these ancient traditions?
Yeah, so just to talk a little bit about the Perpetual Choirs, because it's so important. I discovered it about 25 years ago, and funnily enough, I was in Saffron Walden in the old Sun Inn, which had books at the time. And Saffron Walden, I later discovered, is very close to the centre of the Eastern Perpetual Choir Circle. And there are these singing circles, and the records say that in Llantwit Major in South Wales, Glastonbury and Stonehenge, there were these perpetual choirs where 100 people at a time would sing. And later researchers confirmed, for example, that Stonehenge was a sonic temple, and that the stones were resonating the sound frequency. And that sound frequency was going into people's energy field, and also into the earth, into these ley lines, dragon lines, song lines, and that sound frequency was traveling around the world. Now, if we have several people, where several gather in my name, there am I, so said Jesus. So if we think about that, just me and you, we're going to send out the love. Now that's lovely, isn't it? But imagine 100 people who are specially trained to do it in a building or in a sacred structure on a nodal point of energy. Imagine people doing that. 100 people at a time, continuous vibration. And Dowsers have measured the effect. This is some evidence of the effects of it. Dowsers have measured the effect of these songs, of these sacred songs, and it multiplies the power and the force of these energy lines incredibly. But then the song stops. You might have the Gregorian chant for an hour and then it stops.
Yeah.
Or you might have the people singing in the football ground.
Yep.
And it stops. Or the church or the temple. But what if that perpetual choir kept going? And in India, We went to the Monkey Temple,
Yep.
where the Perpetual Choirs has been reinvigorated. Isn't that a wonderful thing? They sing the Ramayana 24 hours a day. And in Egypt, we went to an old temple, and the guide said this was a temple of the Perpetual Choirs. There was in the Alps on the French-Italian border. There was a church. There 300 people at a time were singing the Perpetual Choirs.
300, wow.
And in India, Rishikesh, they've started the Perpetual Choirs again. We went to Australia, where you have the tradition of the didgeridoo, the perpetual on machine, and they don't call them ley lines, they call them song lines. They would put their intentions, they would pray their intentions into the Earth Mother. And the proof of the pudding, Juliette, was that the Earth Mother gave them what they needed. Because 60,000 years later, they're still there. There's still people living very close to the Earth, the old folk.
A lot of these kind of traditions, these older traditions, you know, the Celtic traditions, there's a lot of songs, you know, when you look at the different tribes, a lot of them still have songs as part of their everyday life, as part of the way they passed on education, as part of the way they connected to their surroundings. And you know, if you think about it, you know, there are so many stories, aren't there, of the kind of women making the food or grinding the herbs, or, you know, working with the earth, singing.
Yeah, and also the slaves, the slaves would sing on the plantations, and a lot of the blues and then the jazz
Yeah.
was like kind of evolved from this, and then into like rock and roll, and so in Africa there was a spiritual, there was a religion, if you want to call it that, which was based on drum beats, which was encoded into the drum beats. So the when the whites came to Africa, the first thing they did was kill the drummer,
Wow.
because the drummer had the ability to communicate with others, but also had this knowledge. And fortunately, this tradition was preserved, because when people traveled to America, it then merged into the Afro Caribbean music, like the conga rhythms, which encode this ancient African religion. So it's so profound. Do you know what, though? You can't stop it. When Jesus was going into Jerusalem, and there was this Hosanna, Hosanna, and they said, Rabbi, this is all getting too much. And he said, if you stop them, the very rocks and stones will sing out. You see, the divinity is in the rocks and stones. The song of God, the Perpetual Choirs is going on now. The birds are singing, the angels are singing. We've just the Om vibration. We
And
just
the
have to
trees
attune.
and the plants are singing, aren't they?
We have to.
Everything is.
We have to attune with it. But if we physically partake in it once again, and I don't know if I'll see it in my lifetime. I thought it would have happened by now in Glastonbury. I thought the Perpetual Choirs, because it's not just me talking about it. Of course, John Michelle before me, John Gibson 40 wrote a book about it. Other people, Simon Peter Fuller, other people have talked about the Perpetual Choirs. But it's not happened yet in Britain. There's sometimes, we'll do a 24-hour thing. In Glastonbury, they do a 72-hour thing. At the Shekin Ashram, they used to do it every year. But it's not happened yet. Why? Because people lack the discipline.
Yeah.
People lack the desire. People lack the gumption. People lack the knowledge of the benefits of it, which is why things like this hopefully are so important.
Well, they're talking about that, because I was going to ask you that. So if it was happening, what would those benefits be to the individual singing and to the planet as a whole, in your mind, picturing it? Because obviously it's not happening, but what do you feel?
Okay, so I can tell you. So at the yoga show, you remember it, we had the yurt in the middle of the yoga show. This was about, maybe it's 12 years ago, something like that, 15 years ago. And people were chanting and meditating in the yurt. We're in Olympia, which is in London. It's a soulless building. And we had a dowser there from the British Society of Dowsers, and he was measuring the energy field that was created, this harmonic energy field of peace and harmony. And he said by the end of the 3 days, it had engulfed the whole building. It had expanded out, expanded out, expanded out. Imagine that hadn't stopped.
Yeah.
It hadn't stopped. I mean, how much do we spend on bombs? We're just sending another millions to the Ukraine so they can bomb people. I mean, how much do we spend on the 37 billion on track and trace? It's obscene, when we could just devote some money to establishing Perpetual Choirs at these sacred places, where people could come and sing and share tones, and it could just be simple. That's what I'd recommend. Even maybe not even have words, because then words can divide us. If I say Rama and you say Allah, then the people are fighting, and people are saying Jehovah, and people are saying, you know,
Makantanka.
they're fighting. I mean, look at what's happening now in the world. It's just absolutely tragic. Whereas if we can sing and tone again, we could bring people together. So what would happen, Juliette, is that this energy of human consciousness would interact with the energy of the earth, and it expands out. We are like fish that live within the water. You change the water, it affects the fish. We live within the energy field of the earth. It would bring healing and harmony. They say that the Perpetual Choirs that was taking place in Britain had an effect upon the whole planet.
Yeah.
The whole planet was affected by this. And what are we doing? We're busy with all these things. So that's why, Juliette, I've spent all my resources that I have into making this music for the Perpetual Choirs to try and help people to get it, to actually get the benefits of singing in these circles again. And that's why the voice empowerment's important, because people won't sing because they're frightened.
They're frightened.
So I have
singing wrong, aren't they?
They're just kind of stuck. So we open people up so they can sing, and we do it regularly here. We've got a singing circle here this Saturday for Imbolc. And it's so powerful and it's so joyful. We've just got to get more people to do it. And it is happening. But I'm impatient, and like I said, I've known this for 25 years, and I thought it would have been happening by now, but it's not. And that I'm doing everything I can. My new album, Unity, that I'm putting the finishing touches to, which is going to be a masterpiece. Incredible musicians on it. And just to encourage people to use their voices and to sing these sacred songs.
Beautiful. I know that, when I've sang, and when you get out of your head, I think this is one of the most important things, isn't it? When you get out of your head and you get into your heart and you just allow your voice to come from that deeper place of, it doesn't matter, I'm just singing my truth, I'm singing my soul, then magic can really happen. And that's what your voice empowerment, I think, is leading people into that expression of the soul, expression of our truth at a deeper level.
Yeah, just a few quick tips, rather than having to book a full session with me. And of course, I encourage you to do so. But
if people did want to book a session, how do they do that?
Go to gilesbryant.com, go to my website, and then just send us an email from there. So some of the things that are most important, one of my mentors, Tina Bridgman, taught me, when you sing or when you sound or you speak, you use your whole body. So if you want to sing well, you need to get your body in health. That's so important. So that means you get a good rest, you get to chill out. That means you stretch your body, you do regular exercise, and you have the good nutrition and good hydration. That's so important. You get your body temple in the good order. And then your posture is very important when you're singing. You want to be upright, and you want to be remove the tension from the body so the song can flow through you. We're drinking this tea here, which has got the herbs in it, like the rosemary and the sage and the mint and
thyme.
Oh, it's so good for the throat. So make sure you're hydrated. Ginger, and these things can be very useful to really help the throat be healthy. And then breathing is so important, Juliette, for the use of the voice and for sound. So to learn some basic yogic breathing, to practice breathing to the body. And then when you use your voice, you have to warm up. You are a sports car. You are a high performance car. Maybe you don't even know it, but you have to go through the gears to hit the top speed. You have to warm the voice up. So simple things like this. Deep breath in. We're humming. And you let that healing vibration of the hum. This kind of crazy stuff that is so effective. And then you allow, as you were saying, you enter that heart space. The thing about the throat chakra is interesting because it is a bridge between the head and that spiritual consciousness and the heart and that loving consciousness. And then that energy can flow freely through us. The song wants to move through us. That divine song wants to move through us. It really does. And sometimes you will witness people. If you want to see it, listeners, viewers, you watched a video of, it was the concert for Bangladesh, George Harrison's concert for Bangladesh in the early 70s. And Billy Preston, when he sings, "That's the way God planned it." That's the way God planned it. That's the way God wants it to be. Oh, oh, yeah. Because when we look at the world, it can cause us so much pain and the injustice and the suffering. And Billy felt that, and that's the way God planned it, and it's hard to say sometimes. But he sings this song, and he's taken over almost. He's taken over. I mean, sometimes I watch videos. I don't like to do it, but sometimes I watch videos of when I'm singing, and when I'm really into it, and I look like I'm absolutely mad. I look like I'm freaking crazy. And I've seen pictures of Ramakrishna. I'm not comparing myself to Ramakrishna, but I've seen pictures of Ramakrishna. He had that kind of a bit of a crazy look about him, and it's the Holy Spirit.
Yeah,
it's the Holy Spirit. It's that song flowing through me, and I sometimes I'm just watching myself, and I'm doing this incredibly complex stuff on the guitar. It's like it's hard to find the
you're a
words for it.
channel.
It's just letting it happen,
Yeah.
letting that divine energy flow through us, and that's getting the body in good order,
Yeah.
and the breath and the life force, the prana in good order, and the mind centered, and the heart open, and to hold that intention of, and that's why I'm passionate, because I know how effective it is,
Yeah.
and how effective it would be if only. And I appreciate you asking me about this, Juliette, because so few people are interested.
Yeah.
On Kind of Sound Radio, no one has asked me to talk about the work that I do, even though I've produced, I don't know, 12 albums now, 15 albums or something. And it's interesting, isn't it? It's very interesting. And I'm grateful for you asking me. You're my wife, but not a lot of people seem to be that
Well, I think
interested about
people are
it.
becoming more interested, and I think there is a waking up to it now, to the power of sound. I mean, I remember years ago when I had my first child, Samuel, and I used to meditate a lot, and I found it very hard. I didn't know what to do because I couldn't sit and meditate in the same way I used to, because I suddenly had this newborn baby that I was responsible for. And I knew about Jonathan Goldman's work, and I started to meditate. I'd sit and I'd feed Samuel, and I'd have him on my lap as I was feeding him, and then my meditation became chanting through the chakras. And that was such a powerful thing for me, using that sound to bring me into a space of alignment. And as a young mum, young single mum, it was a real anchor point for me, and I learned through that experience just how powerful sound can be to as a healing modality. It's and ultimately, what I've realized over time is that everything is sound, everything is vibration. Whether you're working with plants, whether you're working with crystals, whatever you're working with, it all comes back to vibration, which is what sound is. It's vibration. So when we can connect to our sound, or the sound that we need, we can tune into our body, and we can find that sound that can bring us back into alignment. I think this is so important, and this is, what I feel you do with your work is you are teaching people to listen to that internal sound, to bring themselves back into alignment with their truth, alignment with the truth of the planet, and sending that healing energy out first for ourselves, and then into the planet, into every other being.
Yeah.
But we have to start with ourselves.
We certainly do. We 100% do. And I think the popularity of chanting now has never been popular. The popularity of choirs, once the restrictions have been, I know numbers have been hit by the kind of that reset in people's behavior with the choirs. Maybe it's not what it was 5 years ago, but it's still very popular. And artists such as Gaia Sanskrit and Deva Premal and Krishna Das, it's becoming very, very popular. It's the perpetual choirs that has not. There's so much interest in sound healing. It's that knowledge of the perpetual choirs that I feel is not really being understood, possibly.
And you did a great talk on it, didn't you? That's on YouTube.
If
Amazing. How can people find out?
Yeah, if you go to the Megalithomania YouTube channel, I spoke at Megalithomania, and Peter Knight, who is an author of many books and has given probably thousands of talks, he said it was the best presentation he'd ever seen in his life.
So it was a brilliant.
So I am, and I'm speaking at the Glastonbury Symposium on the Perpetual Choirs and the.
So if you want to book Giles to speak at your event, then he can come and speak about the Perpetual Choirs and get this message out there.
But it's interesting, Juliette, because if I do a workshop on voice empowerment, they're flooding in through the doors. And then whilst I get them, I will talk about the Perpetual Choirs. But if I do a workshop on the Perpetual Choirs, then there's a quarter of the people that are interested, or a tenth of the people that are interested.
So there's a resistance in there somewhere for
well,
people, or maybe it's just not understanding it.
I think Gandhi said there's nothing as powerful as an idea as time has come. And I think that this has been my mission over the last, the first Perpetual Choirs album was released in 2012. So that's so 12 years ago now. It's really been my mission to share it and to kind of get it out there. And that's something that I would like to do so much more. And it is happening. But, I think sometimes it's when it's right. And Peter Warnock, who lives near Glastonbury, is a great teacher of sound, sacred sound and choirs. And he said to me, Giles, it will be our children that will be the ones that will take this on, because he said they've grown up with the understanding of it. They've grown up with the knowledge of it. We grew up and we had the music of the 80s, Duran Duran and the Sex Pistols and Michael Jackson and whatever. And we didn't know about the Perpetual Choirs as children, but our children do. Our children have got a knowledge of it, and Pete's children and the other children. So maybe it is simply that this idea that I'm seeding into the world, and that others are as well, of these perpetual choirs, because the potency of it compared to just people having a singing circle for an hour, or we're all singing a song, it's hard to comprehend the difference that it would make if it was a perpetual choir, because it would just keep pulsing out the energy. And that's why they did it. That's why the Perpetual Choirs was happening in Britain.
So maybe the thing is, right now, the mission is to open people's voices. So then the next step is they can do the Perpetual Choirs because they've been opened and they understand on a deeper cellular level the concept of it all.
Yeah, and to keep breeding as well. I would say that. To keep breeding and to
spread the message to those
and
children.
Please do buy the Perpetual Choir CDs. If you stream them, then I get 0.0005p or something. But the albums are available from my website, so you can support me in that way. And if you like the sound of this as well, and you have any access to land or a chapel or a place where singing can take place, then do try to move this project on. Invite me along for a concert or a voice empowerment workshop. And I hope I see it in my lifetime, Juliette, the Perpetual Choirs return to Britain.
Woohoo! Thank you very much, Giles, for being here and sharing your amazing knowledge on the Perpetual Choirs. It's been great having you. I hope you do check out gilesbryant.com, and we will also share the link to the Megalithomania talk on the Perpetual Choirs if you'd like to know more. Lots of love to you all, and have a great day.